On today's show, Cooper Flagg has a lot of pressure on him as a number one pick, but not as much as others. Where does Cooper Flagg have pressure? Where does he not have pressure? Let's talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
Stop it! Stop! The number one pick will go to the Dallas Mavericks. Cooper Flagg will fly in Dallas.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great,
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave.
Your team every day.
I'm going to get a city like that.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being every day or making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. Today's episode, I want to talk about the pressure on Cooper Flagg. Also want to get into Kyrie Irving. Nico Harrison said he's ahead of schedule with his rehab and all that. Not surprised, but what does that mean for the Mavericks? And then I guess we'll talk about the Mavs versus Hornets Summer League game. We'll talk about Ryan Nembhard. We'll talk about Musa Cisse. But rough one. rough one, Las Vegas. I left at the right time for sure. But let's start with this. Cooper Flagg has a lot of pressure on him, of course. He's the number one pick. He's hyped up as the number one pick. He is, talked about, we've hyped him up as the best number one pick since Wembanyama, and then even that Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they're all categorized in the same group of the best players to come out of the draft in the last 20 years or so. And you start going through and you're like, man, those are some big names and big shoes to fill. He is up there with, all right, obviously Wembanyama we talk about is probably more hyped up as a prospect. All right, fine. Zion Williamson, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, you had Ben Simmons was hyped up a ton. Karl Anthony Towns was a super hyped prospect. Andrew Wiggins was a very hyped prospect. Anthony Davis, obviously, is maybe the most hyped since Cooper Flagg. Kyrie Irving was pretty hyped. Obviously, John Wall, Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose. Like, you start going through these guys, you're like, man, there's always pressure on the number one pick to be great. But I don't think Cooper Flagg has as much pressure as all those guys. I think he's coming into a very favorable situation for him. And so I want to talk about the pressure that he's in right now. Where he does have pressure is he's going to have to replace Luka. And that is a situation that he did not ask for. But I don't think it's all completely on him either. I think a lot of it will go on Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis will be the one that wears the brunt of that pressure. But Cooper Flagg will be the one that is like, all right, he's the one next that's going to step up and save the Dallas Mavericks fans from not being fans anymore, which is like an absolutely wild thing. And so there's absolutely pressure for him to compete and to be able to step up and to be the number one player and to be the best player eventually. But he's got Anthony Davis to kind of shield him from that right now, which I think is something that is amazing. And I think that's kind of my point today is that there's tons of pressure on Cooper Flagg, but Anthony Davis is the one that's going to shield him from having all the pressure on him completely. Because when you look at a number one pick and you look at where the pressure comes from, you look at, all right, well, how hyped were they coming out of the draft? You look at what's the situation that they're coming into. Are they expected to be the best player on the team? And are they on a team that's in win now mode? And I think the most pressure Cooper Flagg is going to face is that they're a win now team and that he is going to be asked to play a certain role. And honestly, that has its own sets of excuses or sets of like grace, because you'll be like, oh, well, he's just a rookie. He's in a win now situation, but he's only 18. Like that. If win now is the most pressure he's going to have going into a situation, which is what Cooper Flagg's going into right now, I think that is incredibly favorable to that guy, because I don't think we're going to get to the end of the season. And if Cooper Flagg is put in a tough spot and he fails in a big moment or something like that, I don't think we'll look at that. And I don't think people will kill him, at least in good faith. And I think that is fascinating about Cooper Flagg's situation he's in right now. He's got Anthony Davis to shield him from a lot of the pressure that's going to be coming right at him, because he's not supposed to be the best player on the team. Cooper Flagg is coming to the Dallas Mavericks and he's not supposed to be the best player on the team. Anthony Davis, also Kyrie Irving. Both of those guys should be better than Cooper Flagg and will be when Kyrie comes back. And I think that part of Cooper Flagg's pressure situation is interesting and it helps him in a certain way. So let's go through. I want to go through Cooper Flagg's situation first, and then we'll go through some of the past number one picks, and I want to talk about like where there was pressure on them and where there wasn't pressure on them. So for Cooper Flagg, He doesn't have to be the best player on the team. He's got Anthony Davis and he's got Kyrie Irving who will come back. He is the third best player on the team. Do you know how little that happens? Do you know how little that happens? Like, I went back through all the number one picks since 2008, since Derrick Rose. And these were the ones that were expected. These were the only ones, I think, that were expected to be the number one player on their team. I think, or these are the only ones that weren't expected. Anthony Bennett was not expected to be the number one player on his team. He had Kyrie. You had Ben Simmons because they had Joel Embiid, but there's some other pressure on Ben Simmons we'll talk about. Markelle Fultz was not expected to be the number one player. He had Ben Simmons and he had Embiid. DeAndre Ayton, they had Devin Booker. He was in year 4. He wasn't an all-star yet, but he had averaged 24 points in his third year, the year before that. Anthony Edwards, because they had Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think he was expected to be the number one player right away. And then Zachary Richichet, because they had Trae Young. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Since 2008. Players that have been the number one pick, were they coming in expected to be the best player on the team right away? That is a pressure situation. And that is a pressure situation that Cooper Flagg is avoiding. And he doesn't have to deal with. And I think that part is the most pressure. To expected to be the number one guy. If Cooper Flagg went to Utah, or if he went to the Wizards or the Nets or something like that, that's the pressure that he would have to be the number one pick. Now, there is some grace being on a bad team that you can go out and take your lumps and all that. But I think I think it is better to be in a situation where you're a win now, not expect to be the best player on the team, than to have everything thrust upon you and be like, all right, it's all you or we fail in a way, right? I think when I look at a pressure situation with Cooper Flagg, I think you look at it and say, all right, he's in a win now situation. He does have to replace Luka eventually. But right now, he's got Anthony Davis and he's got Kyrie Irving. And I think there's not as much pressure. He's going to go under the radar in a weird way. Once the Mavs start playing basketball, once it's all together, especially when Kyrie comes back, he is the third, fourth option at times on the floor. He's going to be asked to play defense. He's going to be asked to handle the ball a little bit, make some plays and all that. And the pressure will come when he's in win now situations. He's got to make good decisions and good plays. And that's where the pressure comes from. There is not no pressure on Cooper Flagg. I wanted to come on this show today and say, Cooper Flagg has the least amount of pressure of any number one pick since 2008. That was my initial instinct, because you think through it and you're like, man, he's not supposed to be the best player on the team. They're in a win now situation, but nobody expects them to win the title. So they're not like, it's not the expectations are not through the roof for this team. And he's a defensive guy that is not supposed to be the handle the ball all the time, create every single opportunity offensively. And so I thought that, but then you start looking through it and you're like, all right, well, there are some other examples of guys that have had less pressure than Cooper Flagg. He does have pressure. There is a lot on him, but I don't think it's as much as some people will put it out to be. And he will still be hyped. He will still be talked about a ton. He will still be, questioned if he makes mistakes. Jason Kidd has already come out and said, we are okay with him making mistakes. He's a rookie. He's young. Jason Kidd's going to do the thing all season. He's going to be like, he's 18. These things take time. We've got to work with him. He's going to keep working at it. Jason Kidd's going to say all those things.
I have to apologize that you felt that he should have played more.
He's going to say a lot of things about that. I think he's going to use that every single time. But my point in all this is that there is pressure on Cooper Flagg, but it's good pressure and not as much as some other picks. And I think that makes it a really good situation for Cooper Flagg to be in. Coming up, let's compare Cooper Flagg's situation to all the other number one picks in the past, because I went through it and it is fascinating to see which ones were in a win now situation and which ones, why did they have certain pressures, and how does Cooper Flagg's compare to all of them? Let's talk about that and more. Coming up, today's Locked On Mavs continues. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Hungry Root. Man, I'm telling you, I got home from Vegas. I had nothing in my fridge, and Hungry Root is the way to go to fix that problem, because I don't have time to go grocery shopping. I got to do a show. I got to do Locked On Mavs game night later today. I got so many things to do. Hungry Root is helpful because it uses their smart cart technology to recommend groceries, recipes, and supplements to tailor to your preferences. Whether you're dairy-free, gluten-free, focused on gut health, or just trying to eat better, Hungry Root has got you covered. Go check it out and see what is available. You do this quiz. I kind of liked it. Where you go through and you pick, all right, this is how I want to eat. You go through, this is how My dietary restrictions, they help with all kinds of dietary restrictions like that, whether you're dairy-free, gluten-free, focus on gut health, just trying to eat better, that you can do all that kind of stuff with it. And then you also get an offer with this, which is pretty cool. Take advantage of the exclusive offer. Limited time, 40% off your first box, plus a free item in every box for life, which is pretty great. HungryRoot.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for 40% off your first box, plus a free item of your choice for life in Hungry Root. Take advantage of it. Go get it. Figure your food out. HungryRoot.com. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show and listening. Cooper Flagg has got pressure on him. Not as much as other number one picks, and I think it's a great situation for him to be in. We've talked about how the Mavs situation is incredible for Cooper Flagg. He's pretty much given everything he needs to succeed early and then also be ready in the future. Let's look at some of the other number one picks and talk about how their pressure compares to Cooper Flagg's. Cooper Flagg, his pressure situation is there's hype around him. So much hype. He is expected to be really great. He's expected to eventually be an MVP type player. That is the hype around Cooper Flagg. He's also replacing Luka, and that is a level of pressure that is different than a lot of other players on this list. But replacing Luka, it's a lot like Zion Williamson's situation. Zion Williamson came into the Pelicans, and there was so much hype, and he was replacing Anthony Davis, who did the "that's all, folks" on his shirt at the end of his Pelicans tenure, and made a lot of Pelicans fans mad. And it was a different situation than the Luka trade, obviously, but it was a star player that was not in the franchise anymore and left, and the fans were all up in arms about it, and he had to come in and fix the situation. Cooper Flagg has Anthony Davis, ironically, to fix this situation right now. And so I think some of that is push off of him. Zion Williamson was expected to be the best player on the team. He did have Drew Holiday, who was 29, so he's still in his prime. He had Brandon Ingram, who was a very hyped prospect, number 2 overall pick. He had Lonzo Ball, number 2 overall pick, very hyped prospect, obviously, as well. And so it was kind of a win now situation. But he was coming in, all right, come in, transform this franchise, take the Anthony Davis role and lead our team, basically. Cooper Flagg isn't going to be asked to do the same thing as Zion Williamson. I think there's less pressure on Cooper Flagg than there was on Zion Williamson. Zachary Richelet, let's go back in order. Zachary Richelet, I don't think there was any pressure on him. He was going to Atlanta. It was widely known as not a very good draft. He did have the pressure of being in the number 1 pick, which always comes with pressure. But there was no hype. There was zero hype. I bet you could ask every single casual fan who was the Hawks recently had a number 1 overall pick. Who did they select? And I don't know that many of them will get that answer right. Victor Wembanyama, there was a ton of pressure on him. I think he had way more pressure than Cooper Flagg. He was pressured as the greatest prospect since LeBron. He came in, he was expected to be the best player on the team. They were not in a win now situation, which is helpful for him. But so much pressure on him to be this unicorn type player, to transform the position, to come over from overseas to international, which is its own level of pressure to succeed, and to succeed for your country, basically. I think he's the only number 1 player out of France. Paolo Banchero came in a situation with the Magic. He was expected to be the number 1 player. He was not in a win now situation, but the Magic had 1 winning season in 10 years. You go back through that and you're like, oh man, there's pressure for him to save the franchise. Cooper Flagg has that, but the Mavs have been good. They have good players around him. They have Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, obviously. They have good role players. They've been good recently. It's not like Mavericks fans are starved for, man, we've got to get some kind of win and get some kind of momentum as a team. That's what Paolo Banchero was thrust into. I think that's pressure. Cade Cunningham with the Pistons in 2021. The Pistons had 1 winning season in 13 years. Come in, fix this situation right now. It was not a winning situation. He was expected to be the best player on the team. And it's all right, you're here alone by yourself. There's not many vets around you. Go win. That's pressure to me. Anthony Edwards in 2020. I don't think there was a ton of pressure on him. He was joining Towns. D'Angelo Russell was a really young team. Towns was supposed to be the best player on the team, so Anthony Edwards was not. It was kind of a win now situation. The pressure on Anthony Edwards, I think, was to prove that he should be the number 1 pick. I think there's a lot of talk about, should he be the number 1 pick? Should it be LaMelo Ball? Should it be James Wiseman? And I think that's where the pressure comes on for a player like Anthony Edwards, is prove that you should be the number one guy. We talked about Zion Williamson already. DeAndre Ayton. The pressure came like very quickly into his rookie year where he was replacing Luka. I don't think he was supposed to be the best player on the team. Obviously, I mentioned Booker was in year 4 at that point. It was a win now situation though, because they were ready to start winning with Booker. And so there was some pressure on him for sure. And being picked over Luka, I think is brings a lot of pressure. Prove that you're better than that guy that we're looking at over there that's like dominating. Markelle Fultz, very interesting pressure situation. He was brought in, win now mode, but he was not supposed to be the best player on the team. He had Embiid and Simmons already. But he was supposed to finish the process. It was supposed to be like, all right, we've got these guys. Markelle Fultz is the finishing piece. And now let's go. Let's win. And he lost his shot. There was so much pressure on him that he lost his shot. He got the yips and lost his shot. He's a very good shooter in college. That was one of the things that people expected him to be very good at. And he just lost his shot. So there must have been so much pressure on Markelle Fultz. From the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like there would be that much pressure. But if you just look at how he responded to it, then yeah. Markelle Fultz. Ben Simmons was super hyped as a prospect. It was supposed to come in and coming out of LSU from Australia, be this guy that was supposed to save a franchise. The Lakers really wanted him in a huge way. It was like he was going to, be their next LeBron type guy. He was joining the process with Embiid, and he was asked to handle the offense without a jump shot. I think that is pressure. That is an interesting position to be in, where they are like, all right, you run our offense. The offense runs through you and then Embiid, but you don't have a jump shot. You're being asked to do a lot. He was not expected to be the best player on the team, but he was in kind of a win now situation because of Embiid, even though they were still kind of in the process. So I guess it's kind of a win now situation. Towns joined rookie of the year. Andrew Wiggins, who we'll talk about. Zach LaVine was also drafted that year. He's on that team. And Karl-Anthony Towns was to fill Kevin Garnett's shoes. I think that there's some pressure there. He was expected to be the best player on the team, even though they had year 2 Wiggins, but it was not a win now situation. Speaking of Wiggins, the year before, the Cleveland drafted Wiggins, then traded him for Kevin Love. Wiggins was asked to be the number 1 option. He had Kevin Martin, Rubio, Thad Young on his team. So like he was kind of expected to be the best player, but it's not a win now situation. There's some pressure there. Anthony Bennett, 2014. This is an interesting one. His pressure is the same as Anthony Edwards in a way, where it's like he was way overdrafted. Prove that you're the number 1 pick. Prove that you should be in this spot. Because there's some other guys there, Oladipo and others, where you're like, yeah, those guys should have been the number 1 pick. He was not expected to be the number 1 player. They had Kyrie, but it was kind of a win now situation for him because of Kyrie. Anthony Davis, most hyped prospect since LeBron James, right? The most hyped prospect in 9 years. He was coming in expected to be the best player on the team. Not a win now situation, but tons of pressure on him as the guy. Come in. We don't have a lot around you. Win now. Or win eventually. Kyrie's the year before that, 2011. He was supposed to be the post-LeBron savior with nobody to help. The best player on his team was 35-year-old Antoine Jameson. They were not expected to win now, but like Kyrie was supposed to come in and be the savior after LeBron left with the decision, which is a massive thing. Honestly, Kyrie can like commiserate with Cooper Flagg a lot, because the decision, the Luka trade, were just massive sports moments that everybody talked about, where a great player left the team. And now it was different circumstances, but I think that is a very similar pressure to what Cooper Flagg has. The only difference is Cooper Flagg has Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving. I'm going to keep bringing that up because I think that those guys shield him from so much pressure in this situation. Think about Kyrie Irving. He had a 35-year-old Antoine Jameson, kind of nothing else. And they were like, all right, come in and save this franchise. Like the Cade Cunningham, like the Paolo Banchero. We haven't won in a long time. Come in and save us. John Wall. There was tons of hype around John Wall. He was like expected to be this franchise savior, all that. He also had a weird situation where it was the post Gilbert Arenas incident. Remember the Gilbert Arenas Javaris Crittenton thing where they brought a gun in the locker room and there was just like all this crazy stuff. Gilbert got traded in December of 2010, like John Wall's rookie year. But he was on the team when he started. And then they also had like Swaggy P, Nick Young. They had Andre Blatch. They had JaVale McGee when JaVale McGee was on Shaqtin' a Fool all the time. Like it was just this weird roster and they're like, John Wall, come in and fix this. That's the thing that I think is the most pressure on a number one pick. Come in and fix this. And that was a weird, dumb situation in Washington that he was expected to fix. He was expected to be the best player on the team, not a winning situation. Blake Griffin in 2009 for the Clippers. The Clippers had one season of above 500 play in 18 years before he came in. Talk about pressure. He was expected to be the best player on the team. Win now? No, but man, come in and save this franchise and do it with not a lot. Derrick Rose, he was the hometown guy, post-Jordan savior. Come in and like bring us to relevance because we've been kind of like running around not knowing what to do in a while. He's expected to be the best player on the team, not a win now situation, but another one where it's just like a ton of pressure. There you go. That's my thoughts on Cooper Flagg and pressure. I just think it was a fascinating like topic to go through and talk about how much pressure there is on him, because there is some, but it's not as much as some of these other guys. Think about some of the pressure that these guys were on. Kyrie, Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin. Come in, win now, be that guy right away. You've got no help around you. Coming up, let's get into Kyrie Irving real quick, and then we'll talk about the Summer League, some of my thoughts on the Mavs versus the Hornets in Summer League. We'll talk about that and more coming up. Locked on NBA, Locked on Mavericks continues right now. Today's episode of Locked on Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. People were making fun of me for talking about Summer League lines, so I'm not gonna bring them up anymore because I think you're right. You can do all kinds of great things with this. Paige Beckers, there's a bunch on the WNBA where you can pick some of these. There's a Paige Beckers tab right now. Paige Beckers scored 10 points in 25 consecutive games, is plus 105. 10 plus points in 30 consecutive games. She scored 10 plus points in every game she's played, so that's why this is one of these, which is kind of awesome. To score 10 plus points in 33 consecutive games, it would tie a rookie record. That's plus 290. And then to score 10 plus points in 34 games, so she breaks the record, would be plus 320. That's pretty fun. If you feel confident about one of those, go check it out and put down $5 on it. If you're new, you can put $5 and win $150 in bonus bets if that wins. So go find one that's guaranteed. Go check out FanDuel, official sports partner of the NBA. Go check it on the app as well. That's FanDuel. Please gamble responsibly. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked on Mavs. Angstadt here. We're breaking down Cooper Flagg talking about pressure, and Nico Harrison was on the broadcast during the Mavs versus Hornets game, and he said Kyrie Irving's ahead of schedule. We kind of knew he would be because of the way he attacks his rehab. He said he's been going like 2-3 times a day, but we don't want to rush him as much as he wants to rush it. Seems like a pretty benign quote from a GM, right? About a guy that is dealing with ACL injury, a really important player for the Mavericks. We don't want to rush it as much as he wants to rush it. I don't know that I can believe Nico Harrison when he says we don't want him to rush it. The Mavs are a win now situation. They do not have enough guards for Kyrie Irving to not be brought back this season. As much as Kyrie is going to say, don't hold your breath for me to come back, I think there's going to be pressure for Kyrie to come back. And I think if you put truth serum to Nico Harrison, he's going to say, Kyrie has got to come. We've got to have Kyrie. This is a win now situation. You've got the number one pick. And I don't know that there's going to be this runway for the Mavs to not be good. The pressure is on Nico Harrison for this team to be good. Because I think Patrick Dumont is watching this team and being like, all right, well, let's see how they play in the next couple of years here. Because I think Nico Harrison's leash got so short after that trade and after the response to that trade, because I do not think that they expected the response. I think they went into it and were like, all right, well, let's see what happens. Let's trust Nico with this. And then it just blew up in a way that I don't think anybody would have expected. Anybody that blew up more than anybody expected that was part of the decision making, right? We expected it. I expected it. You listening probably expected it. You're like, imagine going back to, man, if they ever trade Luka, that we would riot. And they really did. And it really happened. And they really did. And so I think that there's pressure on Nico Harrison for Kyrie to come back. And so for him to try to like flip it, and it was such a quick interview. I'm not going to try to put too much into his words, but he said, we don't want him to rush it as much as he wants to rush it. I don't know that I buy that he doesn't want him to rush it back. I don't know that I buy that. He also talked about how there's a lot of opportunity for Cooper Flagg with Kyrie being out to handle the ball, initiate the offense, all stuff that we've talked about a bunch of times, but it's interesting to hear their GM kind of point that out too, that Kidd has now said this, Nico Harrison has now said this. that there's just a lot of opportunity for Cooper Flagg.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
Well, I think that it's just interesting that they all bring it up because I think it's going to happen with the Mavericks too. It was not just a summer league thing. He's going to initiate the offense. He's going to do a lot of things we saw in summer league, and he's going to be asked to take his lumps a little early in the season. Okay, Kyrie Irving also had random stuff today. Kyrie Irving did a 24-hour stream. He's trying to be a streamer now, which I think is like kind of genius. These streamers make so much money. You have so much influence. You have so many people that will follow you. He just like had a camera crew just like following around and live streaming it. It's wild. So he was playing 2K with Jaylen Brown, and they talked about a fight they almost got in practice when Kyrie was in Boston. Jaylen Brown started telling the story, and he's like, I hadn't heard from Kyrie in 2 weeks because Kyrie would have these moments where he just wouldn't reach out to the rest of the team. He lost his grandfather. He was supposed to sign this, long deal with Boston, and then he didn't. And then it's just like there's a lot of stuff going on. And he goes up to Jaylen Brown during a practice, and he's like, I know who you are. And Jaylen Brown goes, oh, yeah, I do too. And Kyrie goes, no, you don't. Like right in his face. And like they almost got in a fight. And Kyrie said something about this story that I thought was really interesting. He said, I didn't know how to express myself. And he didn't know how to like confront people the right way. And he didn't know how to speak to people about his feelings basically at the time. And I thought it was just such a honest thing from Kyrie. And if that moment doesn't happen for Kyrie, if he doesn't figure that out, the Mavs don't go to the finals in 2024. That moment for the franchise that Mavericks fans will always like hold really close. That moment doesn't happen if Kyrie doesn't go through that, because I think we are all like the results of all the things we've been through and all the situations and trials we've been through. And as much as you can go back and like, man, I regret that. Cause I bet Kyrie regrets that moment. And he said in there, I've accepted my younger self and what I did and all that. But I bet like if he could go back, he would take it back. But I'm glad that he didn't, because that is what grew him to be this player that we see right now. The one that has figured out how to express his feelings, the one that's figured out how to confront people in a way. He figured that out. And I think that is just something that we don't think about with these athletes, is that Kyrie grew as a leader because of that mistake in that moment. And the Mavs wouldn't have gone to the finals unless that happens in Boston. Summer League team. That was tough. That was a tough watch. I was wondering how the Mavs offense was going to run without Cooper Flagg, and I was right to be interested in it because it was awful. Ryan Nembhard had 11 points. He had 8 assists, which is nice to see. Only 3 turnovers too, and the 3 turnovers is huge because he was double teamed a ton. They would trap him, double team him off of a screen. Like no other Mavericks needed to be guarded basically in this game because Nembhard was one of the only ones that handled the ball. A lot of stuff on him. He only scored 1 point in the second half. He only played like 9 minutes in the second half because the Mavs were just down. But Ryan Nembhard was the only one that kind of like did some stuff where I was like, okay, he's continuing to show stuff. I think he can still help the Mavericks in a tough spot next year if they're dealing with some injuries. I think Ryan Nembhard can come in and help. Jamarian Sharp has been starting for 3 games. I have not seen anything to tell me that he is an NBA player in those games. As much as I've seen some Mavs fans, maybe you are like, he should be the third two-way guy. Keep Jamarian Sharp. He's 7'5". He's got the size. Man, he's got a great attitude. He's a fun-loving guy. Like Miles Kelly was in a media scrum. There was like 20 people around him in Vegas. And Jamarian Sharp is holding his phone, like 7'5" guy, holding his phone way over his head, like taking a picture of all the people around Miles Kelly. And just like had the biggest smile on his face. And you're just like, I want to root for this guy so hard. But man, I just have not seen anything from him that says, man, all right, he's got some stuff. Show me as a two-way guy. It's going to be back in Frisco. It's going to be back in Frisco with the Legends probably. And we'll see how he plays then. He only had 2 points, 3 rebounds, and a block in 16 minutes. And he's started 3 games in a row. Musa Cisse has been interesting. Showed some really good activity in this game. 8 points, 4 rebounds, all of them on the offensive end. 2 steals, 2 blocks, and he played less than 16 minutes in the game. And I'm not saying he should be the two-way guy, but I am saying that I'm interested to see him with the Legends, see how he can develop, see if he can figure out the pick and roll a little bit better. And unless Gafford gets traded, there's not a role for him in the Mavericks at all. even if he was brought in as the two-way guy. But Musa Cisse, interesting guy. He had an interesting game to me. My guy, Miles Kelly, 7 points, 4 rebounds. He was only 1 of 5 from threes, kind of struggled a little bit. He had but the thing that I'm looking at for him, though, is I'm like, all right, we know you can shoot. The shots will go down. He's got a really great shot. What else can you do outside of that on offense? And he had 2 plays, a really nice jab step and drive the rim. He had a switch on him. He had their center, Kalkbrenner, on him, and he had a nice jab step, faked him out, then drove to the rim, got a nice lay. And then another play where he attacked a closeout. He's about to take a shot. Defender runs at him, and then he drives left into a nice like mid-range jumper. And those are just little things, but for a shooter, you've got to see a little bit of something else. And from Miles Kelly, I think that was a good thing. And those are like the only good things I saw in that Summer League game because, good God, that was a rough watch. Last thing here.
Tumultuous. Is that that's I said it right? Thank you. Tumultuous.
You know what's not tumultuous? Klay Thompson's current life. Been hanging out with Megan Thee Stallion, and Megan Thee Stallion posted like a 7-minute video of her opening this box of these Labubus, these little dolls, these little like looking, they look like where the wild things are creatures. They've got these huge smiles. They've got a monster looking face, but then they also have like, they're also like fuzzy with like bunny ears, and I don't know, they hold different stuff. Like they came out of nowhere. Like I started seeing them all over the place. In my hotel in Vegas, there was behind the front desk, there was just like 6 of them hanging on the wall. And I see people talk about them all the time. I saw them there. I watch this like financial show sometimes, and there was a girl that was like obsessed with them and spent like $40,000 on them. And you're just like, what? Where did this come from? And I don't understand that at all. But Megan Thee Stallion was psyched about getting these Labubas, and Klay Thompson bought them for her. And so she's opening them. And as she's opening them, she's sitting in Klay Thompson's lap, and he's just like not visible, but you could definitely tell he's there. And like, there's so many things I don't understand about that video. But Klay Thompson, his life is not
tumultuous
anymore. Congrats to Klay Thompson winning. And I don't know, maybe that's a breakout season for Klay Thompson. Maybe he's gonna be cooked after this. I don't know. Something is gonna happen with Klay Thompson this season, and I just think that if you haven't seen the video, it's worth a watch, because it is such a weird thing, but so very funny that Klay is like in the video but not visible because he's sitting behind her. Like, so random. All right, random show. A lot of things to talk about. Cooper Flagg pressure, Kyrie Irving and his injury, the Mavs Summer League team, Klay Thompson and Megan Thee Stallion. What else do you expect from Locked On Mavs? Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Check the text line. There's a link in the description where you can text it, and you can get updates all the time from us. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.